Woo! Oh dear. We do like to have fun and inspired coaching. Yeah, and so the way that this works is sometimes people will speak, sometimes I will be answering questions. It's usually kind of like one and then the other. We alternate. I'll talk for a little bit, then we'll have a speaker. They'll get feedback if they want it, and then we'll take a question. But it depends on how many people want to speak. Sometimes there'll be more questions than speakers. Sometimes there'll be more speakers than questions. You never know what's going to happen. It's wild and chaotic and wonderful. So yeah, so that is the nature of open house. This is our third one, and we will be doing more in 2021, absolutely. But this is the last one for this year before the Christmas holidays kick in earnest. If you don't know me, if you don't know me, my name is Danielle Benson, and I am a voice and speaking coach. So my background is in the performing arts. I trained as a theater actor, classical theater, Shakespeare, that kind of thing. And I did that for a very long time. And then I decided I didn't want to be an actor and didn't have any other skills. So I decided to be a voice coach. No, that's not quite how it happened. It is kind of true that I didn't have any other skills because that's what I've been working on my whole life. But when I completed my acting training and I was starting to work in the industry, I don't really like the industry, the performing arts industry. And to be honest, my favorite part is the training anyway. It's the learning about yourself and understanding how to communicate with other people and the leadership skills and all that juicy stuff. So I wanted to focus more on that. So that's what I built this business on. So now I work with everybody, not just performers. In fact, not really performers anymore. More speakers, entrepreneurs, people who are doing TED Talks, sales representatives, all sorts of human beings who use their voice, and I help them to be more expressive, more authentic in the way that they express themselves, and also healthy in the way that they express themselves, because vocal health is something, as someone who trained in the theater, vocal health is something that is extremely important to me. So I always bring that in as well. This is the first time Caitlin's been able to attend one of these events because she is in London, England, and our time zones don't usually really match up.
Yeah.
So this is a new and exciting experience for her. Caitlin has been working with me on my business, on all the back end stuff. She's been helping out. For those of you who've noticed that some of the design on the website has started to get better and some of the social media has started to become more active. And for those of you who are on the Authentic Speakers Training Portal, you're gonna probably next week, in a week or two, you're going to see some significant design changes, and those are all thanks to Caitlin. She's amazing. So
Very kind of you to say.
actually,
Yes,
Caitlin, would you
yeah.
mind introducing yourself? Just tell us a little bit about who you are while I
Yeah, no
get things
problem.
set up. That'd be great.
Yeah, so I'm Caitlin. I am basically based in London. Not a public speaker myself, as you can probably tell, but Danielle will help me with that in days to come. I basically do a lot of the back end stuff for her. So I run a lot of her admin, client support, do marketing, all of that, social media. So you will be seeing me pop up every now and again as well. I've got a long and varied history in all sorts of things, travel, marketing. I used to work in the travel industry, so I did a lot of things to do with tourism boards and events and all of that. So I've got a little bit of a variety of things. All of my degrees have nothing to do with anything that I've worked in before as well, which is always fantastic. So I was a qualified archaeologist for a year. I've got geographical education, literature. So now I'm working in public speaking, helping Danielle run all the back end stuff, which honestly, that's the most exciting side for me, really. Really do enjoy doing all of the little bits and bobs that connect things and bring it together. It's a little bit like building something like physically with your hands, and you're so busy working on the little pieces day to day, and then you step back and there's just a giant boat in front of you. So it's I really get a lot of satisfaction out of that. So it's been a lot of fun doing all the little pieces and bits and bobs, and by the end of the year, we'll be stepping back and seeing a wonderful boat in front of us as well. So
beautiful thing. Yes.
yeah, very exciting. So that's just a little bit about me and what I do with Danielle.
Thanks so much, Caitlin. And actually, it's lovely that you introduced yourself, because for those of you who have joined us, welcome. You are going to be talking to Caitlin to organize your speaking spot and to ask questions. She's going to be the moderator today, so anything that you need, reach out to Caitlin O'Malley. She is the person to go to, because I'm going to be focusing on whoever I'm talking to. So why don't we get those of you who are on the call just to introduce yourselves. I've already introduced myself and Caitlin's introduced herself. So why don't we get everyone else to introduce themselves too? And we'll start with Sam. Sam, do you want to tell everyone who you are?
Good morning, my name is Sam. I have been working as a band teller for 3 years, and I realized I need to work more with my communication skill. In the future, hopefully maybe go move into more like maybe sale. That's one thing I can think of, or maybe something else like stand-up comedy.
Ooh, stand-up comedy sounds fun. Wonderful. Thanks so much, Sam. And Morgan, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi there, Morgan. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Morgan, I worked as an attendant caregiver until COVID put me out of business, and I'm doing this as part of my homework because my mother is Lewy body dementia information center in Canada. My stepfather passed away from it earlier this year, and putting together a presentation, and this is part of my homework.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, good for you. I know that that's really tough. I hear you on that. So I'm so glad that you could join us. Thanks so much, Morgan. And is it Yak?
Thank you for hosting.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Yak, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Yak. I live in Long Beach, and I'm introduced to here by Sylvia.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, and I guess I'm not sure what I'm in here for, but I just want to check it out and see what's going on, and we'll see.
None of us know why we're here.
All right.
Well, rather, we know why we're here, but we don't know what to expect, because that's
exactly. So
that's
I'll check it out, and I'll jump in if I feel like if I'm up for it, but we'll see.
Fantastic. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Great. So what we're doing is anyone who would like 5 minutes to speak, just let Caitlin know and she'll put you on the list. And if you have any questions about speaking or presentations, or even if it's like it's not really a question, it's just something you'd like me to talk about, please also feel free to tell Caitlin and she'll put it on the list. And then so she organizes that information for me, and then I will work from that. So if you would like 5 minutes to speak, you get 5 minutes to do whatever you want. Well, as long as it's not like hate speech or something. Obviously, that's not going to be okay. But 5 minutes, you can promote yourself. You can talk about something that you're interested in. You can bring an idea that you haven't really worked on before. You can bring something that you have polished. Doesn't matter, anything you like. And then if you would like feedback afterwards, I can give you feedback. Or if you're just like, you know what, I just wanted to have the experience of speaking in front of a group. This is being live streamed, so it's public speaking in the times of COVID. And if you would just like it to leave it there, that's absolutely fine as well. These open houses are kind of slightly modified form of what I do with my clients. Every week I have at least one lab event with my membership clients, and they come and they bring whatever they're working on. Sometimes it's a poem, sometimes it's a presentation, sometimes it's a breathing exercise, and I'm just there for them and in service for them, because I have a lot of trainings that are very much my agenda and I tell people what to do, but I always like to have a space where you can bring what your agenda is, you can bring what you want to work on, and I can be in service to you instead. So that's kind of the idea. That's why we never know what's going to happen, because I don't have an agenda. You are my agenda. So we're going to start with a question, just so that it's not too scary, and then we'll have a speaker. So I'm going to answer one of the questions that was submitted beforehand, and I'm going to answer a short one because I can see we've already got a speaker lined up. Just exciting. One of the questions that was submitted beforehand was, what do I do when I'm talking on Zoom and there are no faces to speak to? So a lot of us, when we're doing presentations, if you're doing a webinar style on Zoom or something like that, you don't necessarily have faces to look at. People have their cameras off and it's just their name. It's like a black screen and just their name. And it can feel really terrifying and lonely. It can feel lonely because you're talking into this void. So I do have some advice about that. I mean, the easiest thing is to ask people to turn their cameras on, because then at least you have some faces. Or even if their cameras aren't on, if they can have photos of themselves, especially a smiling photo, you know, like a headshot photo of them smiling, then even if their camera isn't on, you feel like there's someone friendly listening to you. Though that's the best. But it's not always possible, and you shouldn't really be looking at the faces anyway. You should be looking at the lens. So what I do is I do two things. One is I imagine that the lens is like a tunnel. So it's not that I'm talking to a machine by myself in my living room. It's that I'm talking through the machine down this tunnel to the people on the other end. And in order to do that, you do need to have a sense of who you're talking to. So you need to know who your audience is. If you've had a chance to meet them beforehand, then you know who they are, you know what their interests are. You do need to have a good sense in your mind's eye of who you're speaking to. That's always true. It's really good to know who that is. And then you use your imagination to imagine them on the other end of that tunnel. Something else that I do to help me, this isn't so much about not looking at faces, but something that helps me stay on the lens instead of looking elsewhere is, I don't have one right now, but I'll often take a Post-it note and cut a little hole in the middle and put the Post-it note over my lens because it's hard to see. I don't know about you. I'm on an iMac and it's this tiny, tiny little dot and there's this bright light next to it, but it's so small that my eye isn't drawn to it. You know, it's not something that I naturally want to rest my eye on. So I will often take a colored Post-it note and cut a hole in the middle and throw that over my lens just to help me remember where to look. That's not really for looking at faces. The other thing you can do to help you feel like there's a human being on the other end is when you're rehearsing, if you can rehearse with somebody. So talk to someone, and especially if you can put someone behind your camera, like behind your computer, and talk to them, that is ideal. But a lot of us don't have that luxury at the moment. So what you can also do is print out a photo. Print out a photo of someone you like, or if you have a photo of someone you like, you could even use stuffed toys, I suppose, and put it on the wall behind your camera. So it's important that it's eye line so that it's not taking you off somewhere else. But if it's in the eye line of the lens, then you can put like a photo of someone you like talking to or a little stuffed animal or something just behind the lens that you are going to be talking to. And that helps you have that feeling of relationship, because that's what we're missing when we're feeling awkward, because I'm sitting here talking to a machine all by myself. There's no one else around. It feels weird talking to myself, me and this machine. But it's the relationship that's missing. That's why it feels awkward, because I feel like I'm talking to myself. So if I can feel a relationship, and even if you manufacture that relationship through your imagination or through a picture, that relationship will help you feel like you're talking to real people. But I would really suggest asking people to either turn on their cameras or have a photo of themselves so that you can feel like you're talking to a real person. So I hope that answered that question. If you have any follow-up questions, I don't know if the person that was submitted anonymously, so I don't know if that person's on Facebook, but if you are, you can follow up with that. And Sam, you are our first speaker. So welcome, welcome. I'm going to switch to speaker view so that we can see you. And here you are, and you're off mute. Fantastic. So Sam, do you, what would you like to talk about today? Do you have something in mind?
I just try something that I have developed in my mind. I do not know what will that affect and see me, or what will other people see me. Because I need to know, say that this is not, it can be me, but cannot be me too. We will find out.
Okay, that's very cryptic, but I'm sure it'll make sense as you go along. What do you want feedback on? Do you want feedback on anything specific?
Mostly on how do I do it, how do you feel, and how can I do better with the presentation I made. I know it's less than 5 minutes. We'll figure out from here.
Okay, perfect. So I'll set a timer for 5 minutes anyway, just because it's good for me to remember. And I will mute myself, and you take as long as you need, and we'll go from there. Thanks so much.
For the next time, when the doctor see me, it will be on an autopsy table. Do you know why? Because I would just realize the doctor lied to me, the doctor lying about me, and the doctor is lying about the situation. What I'm not going to, and what is really going on, I'm not going to say, because what I'm going to say, they will say it's not good, it's never happened. And I know that in the future, when one day I lie on an autopsy table, they will be writing all the report, taking out all the information, saying what that happened, but that is not really happening. What I really want to say is, because I know a lot of people, they've been lied by the police, not the police, sorry, lied by the doctor. They never want to really connect to them again. No matter how many of the people doing fundraising or doing their social media platform saying about how compassionate, how great they are, how they are doing things, I would say as long as the connection is already broke by the trust, it's never going to be good. Thank you.
Okay, so that was part of your stand-up routine?
Not really. I tried to use it as a stand-up, but unfortunately it went to the other way, I feel.
It went in the sit-down direction.
Yeah.
Okay. So your question was, how does it make me feel as an audience member, and how can you make it better? Those were your questions,
Yes.
correct? Okay, cool.
Yes.
And I'm assuming you're open to feedback.
I'm assuming I am.
You're assuming too. Okay. Well, if at any point you're not open to feedback, just let me know.
I'll throw something at you.
Yeah, good luck. You might just hit your computer. So yeah, I mean, it is definitely a style of comedy to kind of hate on a certain person or a certain profession. It can come across as offensive, so it's something you have to be quite careful with to bring in enough love and humor so that it doesn't just feel like you're being really mad at somebody. And I think the vagueness of, like, you're not really wanting to give details, that makes it kind of err on the side of offensive instead of on the side of, we can all laugh about this together. Because obviously,
Okay.
in any profession, you have good eggs and bad eggs, right? And comedians will often make fun of the bad eggs because that's their job, is to hold people accountable as part of what comedy does.
Okay.
So in order to make it feel less like you're just attacking an industry, you could make up the details. So if it's something that is personal and that did happen and that is real, and you don't want to share that, obviously you need to respect your privacy. But you can make up, substitute some details of the story, or you could, say, for example, or this happened to my friend, so that you can make it more specific. Because I think all of us can rally against an injustice or even a humorous mistake, that someone is kind of getting angry about in a funny way. We can all rally to that. But without any details, we don't really have anything to latch onto. So the more specific you can get in your circumstantial, in the circumstances of the story, the easier it will be for you to kind of walk that line between funny and offensive. Because that is definitely a style of humor.
Can I try it again?
Absolutely.
Can I try it again? Okay.
Yes, you can.
That's actually happened to my friend. My friend told me the next time a doctor see him, he will be lying on top of the autopsy table. He said the doctor lied about him. The doctor lied to him about through the teeth. Not only that, the doctor also took away his own ability. His doctor had been telling him, his life is nothing other than taking on the medication. His doctor have been telling him, you have no self-control. All you can do is taking on the medication. And at the later on, the same doctor also tell him, when you go, you have self-control as long as you listen to what I say and what I want you to do. And he once again he told me the next time the doctor see him, he will be on an autopsy table, and everyone looking at the report, they will figure out the patient is wrong and the doctor is always right.
Right, so that was already a lot better now that we have some details in it. What I would suggest is, it sounds like there's actually maybe quite a lot of material here if you filled out the story a little bit. So, and then again, the more specific we are, the less offensive it is. So you could even say something like, I really love that first line. The next time my doctor sees me, I'm going to be on the autopsy table. That was a fantastic line. Makes me giggle every time. After that, we want to fill out the story. So you start with this very like, ooh, pay attention kind of line. And then filling out the story, it could be my friend or it could be me. You say, my friend has this problem and he went to his doctor and he was expecting this and this is what his doctor said. So you can get really, really, tell it like a story. And then also you kind of make little different jokes throughout the story. So maybe later in the story, I was imagining, this doctor thinks he's a fascist dictator, and then you can talk a little bit about, or the laziness of, I hate doctors who are lazy, because then we're not saying the profession is bad, because obviously there's a lot of really good doctors out there who help a lot of people. But this particular person, he was maybe negligent, or maybe had too much of an ego. Maybe he thought his way or the highway, so you can take that idea and you can make it into a bunch of different themes throughout the story. So we're not going to have time to go through it again, but that might be a really fun thing to play with and to fill out kind of the anecdotal side of it. And then yeah, it's always nice to come back to the autopsy table at the end. You'll have to set it up slightly differently, but it is always nice to have that kind of that full circle. So I think it's got a lot of potential. You want to fill out that story, fill out the anecdotes, and something on delivery. Sam and I have worked together before, so your vowels are getting a lot longer. Well done. Your words are a lot less choppy, but there's still the consonants at the end of sentences.
That's one is something I need to work on. That's not trying not to cut you off.
Yeah, so that's just something to be aware of. But your words are getting longer. They're not nearly as choppy. You just want to hit those T's and D's and F's and all the consonants at the end of the words. Thank you so much for going first, Sam.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Time to
mute. Time to, and then you mute it. That was very smart. So I'll take another question. If anyone else would like to speak, please do. I wasn't expecting stand-up comedy today, so that's kind of fun. And remember, anything that you like. It can be a work in progress. It can be a final product. I am open. It is quite nice for me to be able to work in this way, because there is so much to public speaking and vocal delivery. I don't always know where to start. So it's lovely to have, someone come on and then I can see their strengths and I can help curate the information to what's relevant to you. So I'm going to take another question. I've been told that I like crutch words. How do I avoid the ums and ahs? I don't know how many of you identify with this. I certainly do. I hear myself saying or ah occasionally. The most important thing to know is that, especially in conversational speech on video, you don't want to judge yourself too much, because the worst thing is when I hear myself say or ah, and then I start judging myself for saying or ah, I'm going to say it more and more and more because I'm judging myself, I'm getting flustered, and I'm just going to say it more and more and more. And so becoming self-conscious is not the answer. Starting to beat yourself up about it or notice every single one is not the answer to eradicating or even lessening filler words or crutch words, as you called them. I like to call them filler words, but same thing. Ums and ahs typically come up when we're trying to think and speak at the same time. So a lot of us have this erroneous idea that silence is bad and that we have to fill the space. If we're speaking, we have to just keep speaking. And if we stop speaking, then we're going to lose our audience. And we have to just keep talking. And if we're not talking, then we have to say or ah because we don't want to stop at any point. But that's not true. As an audience member, even listening to that sentence, you may have noticed that it's kind of hard to keep up with someone who is always speaking. It's nice to have a pause. It's nice to have a break. So the first thing to do is address that idea, if that is where it's coming from. If your ums and ahs are filling the space because you feel like you can't be silent for any amount of time, you can't give yourself time to think because you want to keep entertaining your audience, you don't want to lose their attention, that is the first thing to be addressed because it's just not true. It's absolutely okay to have a pause. It's wonderful for your audience to have time to catch up with you. And what those pauses do, if you're allowing yourself to breathe and think during those pauses, that allows you to choose your words more mindfully. Because ums and ahs typically are taking the place of what we really want to say because we don't have the words yet. And so if I take some time to breathe and to think while I'm breathing, then the ums and ahs won't come nearly as easily because I'm thinking about what I want to say before I say it. You know, did anyone else ever get told think before you speak by parents or teachers or similar authority figures? And while they meant something slightly different, it is literally a really good idea. Think just before you speak. Don't think as you're speaking. That is going to bring up the ums, the ahs, the so's, all the ands, the elongated ands. All those filler words are going to come in if you're trying to think and speak at the same time. But if you allow yourself to think before you speak, so every time you breathe in and you're about to say something else, think before you speak, that allows you to choose your words. And if you know what's coming next, you don't need to say and ah, and the temptation just disappears, and then you don't have to worry about it. I'm not big on Band-Aid solutions. I don't believe that getting someone to count their crutch words is going to help them. I don't believe that making someone self-conscious about something that they already think is bad is going to improve their speaking in any way. I think it's much more useful to look at the cause, like why is this happening? And then work with that instead. Because often these things that we see that we're trying to fix, they're just symptoms of something that is going on within us. And if we can figure out what that mechanism is or what that judgment is that's making those things happen, they'll disappear and another bad habit won't come up to take their place. Because if you just put the Band-Aids on, then another little bad habit's going to poke up somewhere else to take its place. So that would be my advice. I also would like to say, this isn't part of the question, but you just got me thinking. I would also really like to say there are words that aren't really filler words that are really important to be aware of. I had a conversation with my spouse yesterday about the word but, because we use it a lot and sometimes it's useful, but most of the time it's unnecessary and it affects our way of thinking. Language is powerful. I studied Shakespeare. I'm all about the power of language. Language is very powerful and it affects the way that we think and feel about things. Often we'll speak before we've really thought about something. And so if I'm always saying, you know, it's a lovely day, but I'm tired, then I've already decided, without deciding, my words have decided for me that I'm not going to go outside because I'm tired. But if I said it's a lovely day and I'm tired, or if I just made it 2 sentences, it's a lovely day, I'm tired, then I'm not negating the idea that I might want to go outside later. And I haven't chopped off that opportunity before I've even had a chance to think about it. There's a game in improv theater and theater sports called Yes and, which, yeah, if you're a friend of Sylvia's, you'll probably know. And the idea of yes and is that you're in full creative state. You're just saying yes to everything. There are no no's, there are no buts, there are no can'ts. Everything is yes and. And the value of that game is that it gets you into a different state of mind. It gets you into a state of mind where everything is possible. And you only figure out whether or not you want to do something by trying it. And that is a much more powerful place to come from, much more powerful place to be in speaking, but also in life, because we often don't know if we want to do something until we've given it an extreme amount of thought or we've tried it. And that yes and switching but to and, or just chopping up sentences, because the other thing that I've noticed with speakers, I just did some training with some master's students who were doing their final presentations, and everyone has these long sentences, because if you're creating a presentation from having written something, your sentences are long because you're been doing academic work or you've been writing something. And we don't speak the way we write, not usually. Often the way we speak is very different from the way we write. We write these long sentences, and you can speak long sentences, but it takes more skill. It's much easier to speak a short sentence. And so chopping up your sentences allows you to bring life into your speech in a very easy way that doesn't require, 10 years of acting training. It allows you to bring in the energy into your voice and see everything separately. Sorry, Morgan, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to elaborate on what you said.
Yes, please.
The late great comedian George Carlin.
Oh, yes.
At one point, and like spoken word was his living, and so he was always having it playing in the background and whatnot. And after years of writing, one of the best bits of advice he gave during this interview, he said that after a year, it took me a long time to realize that, to learn the difference between ready for the eye and then ready for the ear. He went on to elaborate where he said, just because it scans well on paper doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate well into actually, flapping your gums and making noises. Like what often flows like water on the written, flows like flowing water. Speaking too fast, getting ahead of myself, trying to think and speak.
That's all right. Take some time to breathe.
Said that what scans like flowing water on the page would sound like an SUV with square wheels if you actually started saying it out loud. And yeah, don't be afraid to cut words out. You're not going to sound dimmer if you without big words in your thing. You'll sound a lot. You'll sound a lot smarter if you use short, concise sentences that get to the point without going into embellishments.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it depends on your audience too, because if you are an academic speaking to an academic audience, then you can afford to get away with some more complex language. But any sort of presentation that's to a general audience, you should keep it, I think they say grade 4 level anyway.
Okay.
Sorry, did you have something else?
Nope, that was it. Not.
Didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize.
I just had that thing. And another thing, but yeah, that's all. It was just he was talking. He was talking about comedians. All right, he was talking as a comedian talking to, like, say, the audience at Vegas, or he did make the point that yes, you can get a little more embellishment when you're talking to students in the college circuit and whatnot. Yeah. But yeah, he definitely just said, there's a difference between ready on the page and ready for ready for the ear, and don't be afraid to cut words down and shorten your sentences at any time. Less is more, literally, in his trade.
Absolutely. It's very, very good advice. I 100% agree. What I do with my speakers when I'm training people to create a talk from scratch is, a lot of people want to write it and rewrite it and get it perfect and then take it up on stage. And my advice is always, get it off the paper as quickly as possible. If you can avoid writing it down at all, even better, because you don't become a better speaker by writing. You become a better speaker through speaking. Yeah. So the more, you're exactly right. The more that we can feel things in our mouths. And the wonderful thing actually about this kind of work, and I don't know much about your background, Morgan, but I trained as an actor with a speciality in voice. And there's a lot of kind of woo-woo stuff around voice, but something that becomes really apparent when you work with your body a lot and the vibrations moving through your body is you can start to recognize truth and untruth. Because when I'm not really thinking about something, if I'm not really feeling it, it comes from a different mechanism in my body. My breathing isn't the same. Whereas if I'm really relaxed, I'm really connected to what I'm saying, then it comes out differently and it sounds different. There's a different tonality to my voice when I'm just super connected and 100% believing what I'm saying. It's different from if I'm talking about something I'm not familiar with or that I haven't really thought through. And it's this amazing thing where you can really, through speaking, through rehearsal, you can figure out, wow, this is really good. I really believe this. I love this. I don't like this so much. And then you can start looking at, this doesn't land for me. Why doesn't it land for me? What is there that I need to research a little bit more, or do I need to adjust it or put it in a different place in the presentation? There's so much of editing that can happen out loud. It's really cool. It's a cool process. So you're creating a presentation, right, Morgan?
Right. And I'm trying very much to not sound like I'm on autopilot, as opposed to actually engaging with the material, like you mentioned. I've been there a few times. For about a year and a half after adolescence hit, I developed a really bad stammer, and and it was for exactly the reasons that you say people misfire, is because you're trying to think at the same rate you're thinking. And when you're an adolescent, your cups runneth over, you burst with this. You got more energy, and you know what to do with it. Yeah, and that's for a lot of people who develop stammer stuttering, depending where you're from. It develops for exactly that reason. You got it always at that period, and for mostly that reason, you just got way too much energy. I'm 47. I'm looking back at my adolescence, thinking, how the hell did I get so much done?
Me too.
It was a long, drawn out, protracted illness, which drains the life out of everybody around it. And then COVID hit, which didn't help in some respects, but in some respects, it was actually a blessing in disguise. We didn't have to go anywhere or do anything after that. Like he finally passed away right before COVID. So, and this presentation is trying to sound like a tribute rather, and not like we're attending the funeral all over again. I mean, he died. It sucked the way that he died. It's like Gordon Downey. I was not a Tragically Hip fan at all. I actually hated them. I thought Gordon Downey just had one note and that was it. But do I think he deserved to die? Jesus, no. Do I feel bad for the way he died? Oh my God, yes. Like, and it. But a lot of the tributes, especially from the band, they didn't sound like they were rehearsing anything. They sounded off the cuff, authentic, and like they weren't running on autopilot. Their friend had just died, and it was raw, and you could hear it every time they opened their mouths. Trying to get that without trying to destroy the crowd and make them, without trying to get everybody, broken down into tears, but to telegraph just how difficult it was, and to sound not like to not sound like we're restaging the funeral all over again. So it's that's what those are the things I'm looking at. I want you just try to maintain authenticity, but without becoming rote. Yeah, that's the end goal for this piece.
Yeah, and that's a really tricky thing to do, for sure. I can only imagine. May I offer something that might be useful?
Okay.
What I find with very emotional material, especially if you're not rehashing, but you're revisiting something that has been said before, and you don't want to kind of just redo the same thing, focusing on kind of a core message. And so what is the kind of one thing that I want people to take away from this? What is the angle? What is the perspective of this particular presentation? Because it sounds like you've already done a tribute, and this kind of includes some of that, but you have a slightly different, agenda is not really the right word, but you know what I mean? Like you have a purpose for this talk. And so focusing on that purpose, and anytime you're kind of like, well, should I include this, or is this too emotional, or, anytime those questions come up, measure that against what is the core purpose of this presentation. And that might help with just choosing what to keep and what to leave out.
What is core purpose?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's we managed to eliminate one part that would have made it boring, and that's just having the words appear on the screen as you're writing them out.
Mm.
We're still in the assembling the elements phase for this presentation, so we're having animations to go along with it, and essentially I'm providing a more or less live voiceover for it. The only time we made an agreement, and because I read about this in a book about presentations, is like the only time you ever want to have your words and the words on the screen appearing at the same time as your voice is when you're running out lists.
Mm-hmm.
These are the because I'll because Lewy body dementia is such a slippery fish. It is dementia is the umbrella term, and Lewy body dementia is a very specific sub
Mm-hmm.
you want to call it subgenre even of dementia. And it's particularly dangerous because it constantly gets misdiagnosed as not Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease. And the drugs that are very effective in treating Parkinson's are extremely dangerous to people who have Lewy body dementia. And it's part of what finished off Robin Williams. So speaking of comedians, because he had Lewy body dementia, but for the first 2 years it was misdiagnosed as Parkinson's.
So if you're doing voiceover, my suggestion would be, and you're right, you don't want to have the words in your voice at exactly the same time, unless a list or a quote. Like if you're reading a quote, then that's all right as well. But my advice to you would be, really focus on breathing deeply and going at whatever pace feels right. Don't push it, don't rush it, don't feel like you need to be entertaining, especially with a more somber piece, with something that's more emotional. You can really afford to take your time. So breathing really deeply all the time and just staying very aware of your body and very present in your skin will, I think, help to kind of to lead that, and it'll help you ride the ups and downs of the presentation, kind of, because everything goes up, it goes fast for a little while, and then it slows down a little while, and there's a natural pacing to that will come out the more connected you are to your body. So that would be my advice.
It'll sound like I'm actually engaged with material rather than just spouting up stuff I've memorized.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that I really learned from acting training is, when we use the word gut feeling, that is very much a real thing. Your guts are where your feelings live. So if we breathe into our bellies, then it wakes up the nervous system. It stimulates the nerve ganglia, and it allows you to feel it allows you to feel physical sensations more as well as emotional sensations more. So if you're ever feeling like, oh, this is a really big topic, it can be maybe a bit emotional, and you're feeling the temptation to numb yourself to that, just breathing into the belly will help you stay connected.
Okay, breathing into the belly. So gut feeling, you mean like intuition, instinct, stuff like that. Like just
yeah.
Let that tease out the properties of the material that'll be most effective.
Exactly. Just trust your gut, as they say. I'm going to just be full of cliched metaphors now.
Thank you very much.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Best of luck with it. And yeah, I mean, this is the last open house, but I have at least 4 practice labs running, which you're welcome to audit for free, or you can drop in. Caitlin, can you throw I've got a free trial as well going on right now. So Caitlin, if you can throw that link for the free trial membership in. If anyone's interested, not just Morgan, but especially Morgan, but if anyone is interested in trying out my membership program, I do have a free one month trial. So it's more than enough time to get to know me and test things out. So if you've got a presentation coming up, for example, it might be a perfect time. So there's the information there if you're interested. Thank you so much.
Are you both hosting this from England?
No, I am in Vancouver, Canada.
Okay. I've been for 25 years. Nice place.
But yeah, it's very pretty. I love it here. Caitlin and I are actually cousins. We grew up in South Africa.
Okay.
And I needed an assistant, especially especially with COVID. I took my business online and international kind of at the same time. So having someone in a different time zone working for you is actually amazing. So I would recommend it to anybody. If everyone's all in the same time zone, you get very stuck in that. Whereas having someone that I work with in a different time zone makes me very aware of that, and it has affected the times of my events and things. So
Just in the interest of full disclosure, I was actually here in my time zone at 11 o'clock, ready and waiting, but I just realized, oh, there's a 3-hour difference between here and there.
oh
I keep forgetting. I'm in Kitchener-Waterloo, Ontario right now, so it's about 3 hours difference.
yeah, and there's always that struggle of like, I don't want to be confusing with the time zones, so I try and always like include PST, but then also, you know, it is always easier for people to see things in their own time zone, but you don't want to switch between. So I'm trying to build consistency. I am still learning, but we're looking to integrate the calendar link so that everyone can see things in their own time zone. So I hear you, and thank you for coming back. Awesome. I did have a question. Yak, did you have anything that you wanted to play with now that you have an idea of how this works? Oh, you're on mute, maybe? I can't hear you, but you're not on mute. Are you plugged in? I can't hear you. Because I saw that you were on mute, and now you've unmuted yourself, but I still can't hear you. So yeah, maybe just try it again. Well, you're not wearing headphones, so it's not a plugged in thing. Can't hear you. Oh no. Well, I'm so sorry. I like put you on the spot, ask you a question, and I feel like this is my fault. Oh no. It's always tricky with technology, you know. It's never ending. I always think I've got it sorted out. I have my routine that I always do everything the same way, and then every now and again. Yeah, that's great. Leave and come back, yeah. That'd be great. It'd be lovely to chat to you. Yeah, the technologies, and that's actually one of these things I've started including in my coaching is how to deal with technology, because it comes up so often, and how to present in a way like, what if the person who's hosting your event doesn't have as good a connection as you do, or you know, there's so many things that can go wrong. So I've started actually including that in when I talk to people about online presentations specifically. I've started including some best practices to anticipate all of these problems that can happen. Because if someone is cutting in and out, there are things that you can do with your vocal delivery and with your physical delivery as well to make it less annoying that it's cutting in and out, because you can't control other people's internet connections. There's nothing to be done. You can only control your own. So unless you're going to pre-record something and then send it to them, but that's boring. Much more fun to do things live. So yeah, slowing things down for sure, like elongating words really helps. So speaking a little slower, because when internet does cut in and out, it's usually quite quick. So if you speak slower and over articulate, that tends to help. It feels weird, but it helps. And paraphrasing as well is fantastic. So if you are on a call where you know the internet is cutting in and out, never just say never just say something once. Always say it a second time slightly differently, which is good practice anyway. If you are doing any sort of informative speaking, it's always good practice to paraphrase, you know, say it one way, then say it slightly different way in a minute, so that the people who didn't get it the first time will get it the second time. But it's also really helpful for people whose internet isn't doing very well. They're much more likely to get it contextually. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this will work. Yak, do you want to give it a try? So you got to unmute yourself first. The call automatically mutes you. And
Hey there.
yes, woohoo!
I don't have anything prepared, so yeah.
Do you want to talk through any projects that are coming up, or any questions you might have?
Sorry.
No? Okay, that's fine. No pressure. I just wanted to include you in case, because it really isn't about, you don't have to have something prepared. We can just chat about whatever's coming up for you. So I just wanted to check in. Okay. No pressure. I definitely don't want to force people who are feeling a little bit like they don't have anything to say, or they don't maybe trust me, or they're feeling a bit shy. I definitely don't want to press that. I just want to be inclusive. So let's take another question. Got my list here. Ooh, when I speak up in a meeting, no one listens, but when my colleague says exactly the same thing 5 minutes later, everyone thinks it's his idea. This is very common. So this is actually tied to tone and delivery. Not only, of course, sometimes it's got to do with how much respect you have in your office or how people feel about you, but a lot of that comes across in the way that we interact with people. And so if you are finding that often in a meeting you'll say something, you'll suggest something, and then everyone just ignores you, and then 5 or 10 minutes later someone else says exactly the same thing, and everyone's like, oh, what a good idea, wow, you're so smart, and you're sitting there silently fuming, there are a couple of things that you can do. So not knowing your situation, I imagine that it's one of a couple of things. You may have a timid body language. So if you make yourself small when you speak, if you kind of avoid eye contact and maybe drop the sternum or have kind of self-protective gestures when you're speaking, typically that signals to people that you are feeling small or self-conscious and that you don't want to be seen or heard. And so even if you do kind of put up your hand and say something, if you're saying it from that place of, I feel small, I don't want to be seen, and you have that body language, then chances are people are much less likely to listen to you and to take you seriously, because there's a mismatch between the fact that you're speaking and all the body language and vocal tone that is saying, please don't listen to me. So that's part of it. That's often part of it, is that we're not using confident and not aggressive, but authoritative posture, dominant posture when we're putting something forward. That is extremely important as part of being heard. So a key to that is opening the sternum. Amy Cuddy, I don't know if anyone's familiar with the work of Amy Cuddy. She has a TED Talk on, I think the name is Your Physiology Affects Your Psychology. Check it out, it's really good. She talks about hormone levels and body posture within humans, but also within the animal kingdom. It's very interesting. Anyway, so confident body posture is open, tall, all the things that we associate with a confident person. And one of the biggest things is opening up the sternum. So not letting the sternum be collapsed, but opening it up and lifting it up so that you look like you're comfortable in your space and that you are taking charge. So that's the first thing, is confident body posture. The second is confident vocal tone. So if my voice sounds really small or really breathy, or if I've got a lot of fry in my voice, or if my voice goes up, like upspeak, sometimes they call it Valley Girl speak, and everything sounds like a question all the time. If any of those vocal habits are going on, it makes it more difficult for people to take you seriously, and also to hear you at all. So if the voice is too quiet, if the voice is kind of raspy, or if the voice goes up in that questioning upspeak, those are all indicators to whoever's listening not to take you seriously. So if those things are going on, they're more likely to discount what you have to say, or just not to listen in the first place. The upspeak is a little tricky to work with. You've got to kind of practice going down at the end of a sentence instead of practicing going up. It takes quite a lot of concentration because it is just a pattern. It is often indicative of having insecurity around something, so you might want to look at that. As far as a strong, powerful voice goes, that is primarily due to the amount of breath that you bring into your body. So in acting training, we talk a lot about breath support. And if I don't have a lot of breath coming in and I'm not using the breath as it comes out, then my voice is going to get small or kind of breathy, or it's going to sound very insecure and like I don't know what I'm talking about. It doesn't need to sound that way. Even if you are feeling small, you can bring in more breath into your body and use more of your body when you speak to sound more confident, even if you're not necessarily feeling it. And often that will help you feel more confident. So there's this wonderful feedback loop that goes on. If I hear my voice sounding strong and confident, then I start to feel more confident, and then it's easier to do. And the way we do that is by using the intercostal muscles and the diaphragm to really bring in as much breath as possible, and then also to use that the strength of those muscles as your breath is coming out. So I'm sure most of you have heard of, the diaphragm, and that you breathe with the diaphragm, and that is always accurate. You are always breathing with your diaphragm. That's your breathing muscle. But you also have the intercostal muscles between your rib cage, and especially the intercostal muscles in the what's called the floating ribs or the spare ribs. You can use those and really fill up the lower back and the lower torso, but especially around the back, and that will give you some strength and the support to let that voice carry. Because if we are speaking in a way that communicates tonally that we don't want to be heard, it is difficult for people to hear us or to take us seriously. So tone is one of those things that is immense fun to play with. There's a lot of exercises for it, so I can't really do most of them now, but it is really fun to play with. And speaking from different parts of your body and breathing into different parts of your body is a great place to start experimenting with that. So that's my answer for if you want to be heard the first time in a meeting. Yes, Morgan?
Just it reminded me of a joke that Steve Martin liked to tell during his stand-up days. He was talking about a woman who singing teacher wanted. He was like, do you know where he wanted her to breathe through? Through her diaphragm. And everybody, the audience laughs and says, man, that would take decades, wouldn't it? And it's on his stand-up. It's on his stand-up album. It's an absolute gemstone, but it's just peppered with stuff like that. Very silly double entendres.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I hate to say it, but a lot of voice teachers will tell you to breathe with your genitalia. So not, it is a double entendre, but it's also kind of right.
You think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Definitely. I'm going to stick to biological terms here, but especially the perineum, the muscle right down at the bottom of your torso, that is an extremely important muscle when it comes to breathing and speaking. So yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. No, the more I just put it together, and yeah, I'm just enjoying how much sense that makes.
Yeah, it's one of those challenges whenever I'm teaching voice work to give physical instructions without making myself blush is
People just improve their speaking just in general, just as part of their everyday engagement. Would you recommend stuff like yoga that emphasizes deep breathing and whatnot?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes, yoga is fantastic.
There's several different types of yoga. I'm thinking of hatha yoga. That's a very physical, that involves physical stretching positions and breathing at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. So I incorporate a lot of yoga type work in what I do with my clients. The only difference between kind of the yoga type stuff that I do as a voice coach and yoga is that often yoga is about tensing the core and controlling the breath, and specifically the type of voice and expressive work that I do is about releasing it. So it's the same muscle sets. Yoga is amazingly useful for building those muscles because they do need to be strong in order to relax them. So yeah, yoga is fantastic for building the strength and for building the awareness and the specificity of the muscle groups. And then I love it when I work with yoga teachers because they're like, you're asking me to relax something that I usually tense. I'm like, yes, I am. Because when we're speaking, when we're expressing on stage or on camera, it's about being in flow and about being open and relaxed. Whereas a lot of yoga training is about kind of core strength and slowing things down in a very conscious way. Whereas a lot of what I do is taking all those things and building an instinct and an unconscious way of being open. So yes, it's amazingly useful. Sometimes it's a bit of a like, oh, I'm using all these muscles, but in a slightly different way. But it is very, very useful, yeah. Yes, Yak.
So I think I have a opposite problem than what the question was. Like I notice and I've been told that I tend to raise my voice when I try to make a point, and that comes across as an aggressive for the others, so they don't even they don't get what my point. Instead, they're taking that I'm aggressive, so they don't even listen to my message, which sometimes, my message can be right or can be a good point, but they just don't listen because they think that I'm attacking them.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you, I think it's the opposite of the previous question that, hey, I have a good point and they don't listen to me. Well, it's the same point, but I have a good point, but because I raise my voice, they're like, oh, you're attacking me, so how do you balance the two?
The other side of the same coin. Yeah, for sure. This is something that I have personal experience with because as a South African, I had a very aggressive tone when I moved to Canada, and I had to really learn how to chill my voice out so that people would listen to me because everyone thought I was angry all the time. So I totally hear you. I have a question. When you feel that's happening, is it because do you know what's going on in your body? Do you know where you're speaking from, or is it an emotional state that you get into? Do you have any idea of what's going on there? Just because it could be a couple of things, so I want to make sure I'm addressing.
It's more that I'm passionate, and I think I'm correct, and I want to express my passion at how, hey, this is the right thing to do or the right solution, but because of that, other people think that I'm aggressive and attacking them personally instead of attacking the problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the message is lost because of my communication skill, not what I'm saying.
For sure. So there's a couple of things here. Without actually getting to do a role play, well, I'll do the best I can. But if you want to speak about this more, you get in touch with me afterwards, and we could even. I also do free vocal needs assessments. So anyone who wants to do that. Caitlin, if you can throw that in the chat as well. So what I think potentially might be it, not having been there, is it sounds like when you get excited, when you get passionate, you're like, oh, this is so important, or even so interesting, maybe not even that important, but interesting, then your energy comes up. And when your energy comes up, it might be that without a grounded voice, it might be that your voice comes out more from the throat. So if I'm really excited and I'm not really controlling my energy, it can come out from my throat and from my shoulders and kind of from the upper part of my body, and that can sound more aggressive than it is just because it's not grounded. Or it could be that I drop out of rapport with whoever I'm talking to because I'm so excited. And this is something that I have to deal with all the time. I have to keep checking in with people because I get taken away by my excitement. And if the excitement is very strong and it kind of sweeps you away, you might start to focus on that so much that you lose your connection with the person that you're talking to. And so what might help, something to try, is when you feel this happening, one, breathe deeper. See if you can move the center of gravity lower into your body. Because when the voice comes from lower in the body, when it comes from the diaphragm, the floating ribs, from the belly, when the voice comes from there, it sounds more inviting. It doesn't sound as aggressive necessarily. It sounds more pleasant to listen to. Whereas when the voice comes from the throat, even if I'm not really pushing, it sounds more aggressive because it's coming from the throat. So that's the first thing, is to bring the voice down to the body. And then the second thing would be really consciously check in with the other person consistently. So, look at their facial expressions, ask them a question, get that relationship stronger again, because sometimes it might be that your relationship with the idea, or the thing that you're passionate about is so strong that the other person kind of gets excluded and you're on a roll. It might be that. So for that, it's about taking the time to listen to them, even if they're not speaking, but listen to their body language, listen to their facial expressions, and remember that communication is about the exchange, not about just an output, but about an exchange. So checking in with them, paraphrasing, and that kind of thing might help. Do either of those sound like they might be useful?
The checking in with the other person, yes, but bringing down your voice, I guess, what does that mean? Like you just like lower your body stance?
It's difficult to explain.
You did a good job, by the way. Like I can see how your voice raised. And that's probably what people think of me, but you know, you got so excited and raised your voice, and then suddenly you tone it down in the next 3 seconds. So
it's something I'm very familiar with. It happens to me all the time. I'm very excitable. My roommates, when I had roommates in college, used to call me the puppy, because that's the way I would act. They were like, you run down the stairs when we come home from school, like you are a puppy. So I'm very familiar with the excitable energy. It's difficult to explain, but essentially it's almost like an attitude shift within your body, like a physical attitude shift. So if I'm speaking from my throat, all of my awareness is just kind of my throat and up. It's in my head. It's out of my body. I'm feeling very ungrounded. Whereas if I'm grounded, so physically grounding means to be more connected with the floor. My center of gravity is lower. So you can have your center of gravity can be in different places. You can play with that. If you do any dancing or sword fighting or anything like that, you can play with different centers of gravity. So if you bring your center of gravity down, I often will bend my knees to just help me remember to kind of come down a little bit. So physically bringing the energy down in the body, breathing lower really helps. So typically if I'm speaking from my throat, I'm breathing into my upper shoulders. Whereas if I'm breathing all the way down into my belly or into my pelvis, into my bum, it will affect how grounded my body feels. It's really relaxed versus tense is really the kind of shorthand. If I'm tense, all of my energy is going out. If I'm relaxed, then I can sit into my body. And so it's ways of relax. How on earth do you trick yourself into relaxing when you're excited?
There's a physical thing.
Yeah,
that
it's a
you
physical
actually
thing.
Don't do. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Or is that just in your head?
Very physical. Well, I mean, my head tells my body what to do, so it is in my head in that I have to think it in order to do it. But it's very physical. There's a great exercise, and actually, since you're on the call, I have your email. I'll send this exercise out to everyone who's on the call, and anyone who isn't on the call, just let me know in the chat, well, in the Facebook chat if you want it. But everyone who's on the call, I will send out. There's a great exercise that I didn't invent. I have no idea who invented it, actually. It's been around forever. I learned it as the fricative breath exercise. So it's, I have generalized anxiety disorder. So I have anxiety attacks sometimes. And I learned it as a way to deal with anxiety attacks. But man, is it useful in speaking work and in any sort of grounding technique. It's fantastic. So I'm not going to go into the exercise now because it's a bit weird. It's just a breathing exercise. So I'll send it to you. I'll send you, I have an example of that. But for grounding the body and that energy that just kind of wants to run away with you, because when you're really excited, it can come across as aggressive. But this is also what happens when we get stage fright. When we get nervous, our energy just kind of runs away with us. And that's why we stammer and stutter and forget what to say and fiddle on stage, is that energy kind of runs away with you. And so grounding that energy into the body, into the voice, and harnessing that and using it more powerfully, that is really the key to it, is the difference between tension and relaxation. So I will send you that exercise, and hopefully that'll help. Thanks so much. Great question, Yak. I'm so familiar with that feeling. And something that's very near and dear to my heart. So we are going to wrap it up. If there aren't any final questions, let's just make sure. Caitlin, sorry, Caitlin, I didn't see you there. Did you want to speak, Caitlin? Do you want to be our final speaker?
No, I just I had a note because I've been talking with a friend of mine recently. She's starting up a podcast, and she's been really struggling with getting that intro and kind of starting each episode. And I'm wondering if the things that we're kind of chatting about are in a similar vein to starting a speech or starting a talk or kind of launching that and getting that interest from within a few minutes. And what seems to always come back that she was really struggling with was inserting the personal, because she's kind of doing more of a documentary style. And so she has all of these facts and all of this information that she's really passionate about. But there was no connection at all as to why she was interested in it or why anybody else should be interested in it. And bringing the personal back into that introduction repeatedly, we were having a look. I kind of sent her a whole bunch of examples of other podcasts and things, and that always draws people as that personal. So I thought I was just wondering if you also kind of had any other advice for grabbing attention, kind of like in the first couple of minutes and making it mean something to other people.
I have about a 1 hour rant about how to do that. So I'll see if I can squeeze it into a few minutes. Yes, there are so many things that you can do. There are a lot of kind of tricks of the trade to grab people's attention in the first few minutes, because that is something that is universal. No matter what you're speaking about, if you're doing a video, if you're doing a podcast, if you're introducing yourself, getting a hook, getting people interested in the first few seconds is the most important thing. So my favorite hook is to throw people in the middle of a story. So just to, if it's a longer speech or if it's a podcast or something, to throw them right in the middle, so that they're, where are we? What's going on? And it builds this interest and this intrigue. That's one of my favorite techniques, but there are so many others. A lot of people start with a question or with a kind of a little bit sassy statement, something that makes people stop and go, oh, what? For example, like Sam's joke, the next time you're going to see me is on the mortuary table. But yeah, the intros to podcasts are a little bit different. So because there's the intro, which is you always say the same thing at the beginning of the podcast or a video, and then there's the first few minutes of content, and those are different things. So for an intro, I would suggest it's a really strong idea for branding to always say the same thing at the beginning of any sort of video series or podcast series, anything like that. Always start the same way, but you have to do it in a way that is engaging and exciting. So you got to find something that lights you up and that you can really mean every time you say it, because the worst thing is when people do an introduction, they're so used to introducing themselves that they kind of gloss over it and they only get excited when they get to the content. So for example, hi, my name is Danielle Benson. I run the Inspired Speaker Academy, and what I do is I help people to connect to their authentic selves. So today we're going to talk about this and blah, 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 blah. And the energy only kicks in after the intro, and that is the worst thing. So we have to find a way to make the intro interesting to us so that we're connected to it every time. And that is a huge question. And there's a lot to do on that. So for the intro, yes, it's a fantastic thing. Something that I really recommend if people struggle with that is to have the first couple of seconds be bloopers or the most interesting part of the podcast or video, something where you're really riffing, you're in flow, you're having fun, and then do the intro, because then you can ride that energy. You can also, what I love to do is I press record and then I tell a joke or I make a silly face, and then I introduce myself. So I'm riding the silly energy of that, and it takes me out of my head, it takes me out of my self-consciousness. You can't do that live, of course, but if you're editing it afterwards, it's great fun. So that would be my suggestion. As far as keeping it personal goes, yes, 100%. People connect to people. They don't connect to facts. We connect to stories and we connect to people. So having a perspective and seeing this information through a lens. So what is my point of view? Who am I and what is my point of view? What is the human perspective that I can shed on these facts? So always the context of the human and the relationship first, and then to introduce the facts that way. I like to think of it like point of view. Like if I was studying a character, I would need to know what their point of view would be before I went into the text or any of that, the dialogue. And so it's the same, telling a story or sharing facts, letting the audience know who you are and why this is important to you before, and then always contextualizing facts in story or anecdotes. It's very important. Yay! So I was about to wrap up, but now Sylvia's here, so I'm not going to wrap up yet. I'm going to give Sylvia a chance to speak because he just dropped in. Hello!
Hi, I was watching the whole thing on Facebook, but I was outside, so I was just like streaming it, and now I got home, so I turned on my computer and quickly jumped in because I knew you didn't finish yet. Like
you're so close. You're so close. So fantastic. And if anyone does need to leave, this is a drop-in, drop-out, so you're welcome to. But as we can see, Sylvia just dropped in, so I want to make sure that we give you a little bit of time, Sylvia. Did you have a talk or something you wanted to speak about?
Yeah, I have something. I was inspired by Sam's stand-up, so I will do a little piece as well. Something I haven't have done before, only in Slovak language, and I only have it in Slovak, so I will be just like translating it to English as I will be reading it in Slovak. It will be so much fun.
Awesome, translating on the spot. I love it. So, what would you like feedback? Would you like feedback, and what would you like feedback on?
Yes, anything as usually, just general content, delivery, things like that. I didn't really have time to rehearse it.
Okay.
So kind of like the second try going at it. So just anything really.
My advice would be, if you are reading it, if it's a work in process, then I don't even try to perform it. Just don't try to make eye contact. Don't go for that. Just enjoy reading it. It'll be easier to work on that way. If we're trying to do too many things at once, when we're kind of half-baked, then we just kind of do a half-assed job of everything. So rather, if you're reading it, just read it. Enjoy reading it. Don't worry about making eye contact or anything like that. It'll be easier for us to connect to the content that way. All right, so I am going to mute myself. I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes, and whenever you're ready.
Ready. So hi everyone, my name is Sylvia, and I can see that everyone is now looking at me and kind of like having first impressions of me, and that's great because that's what I do too. I judge people permanently. Not only when they're on the stage, I judge them like all the time. I'm in the shopping center, I'm judging the shop assistants. I'm in the labor office, I'm judging the workers there. Like, why are they so mad? And why are they mad at me? I haven't done anything to them yet. When I see policemen, I judge them as well. I just judge people. I love it. Right now, I have a new judging criteria. Thanks to COVID-19, I'm looking around when I'm walking and I see all these women, and sometimes I say to myself, wow, what a nice facial masks she has. Some women, they wear really beautiful facial masks. It's like a fashion piece now, a fashion statement. And there are many hoaxes who are saying that it's pharmaceutical companies that are responsible for COVID. I don't think the conspiracy is right here. I don't think it's a pharma business. I think it's the clothes business, the textiles. Because now, like the facial mask, it's a huge thing, and I'm sure very soon we will have some $500 facial mask from Louis Vuitton or Gucci or anything like that. And of course, I'm judging people from the way they are wearing their facial mask, because when they have everything as they should have, like they have their mouth and nose covered, they just gain my respect. Because those people, they are intelligent, they know what they're doing, and we belong to the same social group, right? For me, it's just like fascinating how a piece of cloth managed to polarize the society. For me, I don't care about wearing it. I see only positives, really. I don't spend so much on lipstick, and I feel like a fucking superhero, right? Because all superheroes, they wear masks. Now I get to wear it too and don't feel like a weirdo when I'm going outside. Then there is people who don't like to wear a facial mask because of their personal freedom. And it's the same kind of people who step very close behind you when you're in a line in the grocery shop and who just breathe on your neck. It's the same type of people. They just, as the same way that they don't understand scientific facts, they don't understand what it means to give like some social distance. I actually like this social distancing thing when people actually understand it and respect it. They're not right behind me. I love it. And I'm hoping this is one of the things that will remain with us also after the COVID. And that's where I can end because I think it's close to 5 minutes. Thank you.
That was like 4.5. Well done. That's very relatable content to me right now. So yeah, great. So you wanted some feedback on your content and delivery. I love the content. I think it's relevant. I think might potentially be a little polarizing, but that is, you know, part of whenever we get up to speak, we want to attract the people who are the right people for us and let the people who aren't right for us know as quickly as possible so they can go off and do something else and they don't have to waste their time or our time. So, you know, it's not bad to be a little bit polarizing. A couple of things. I know you were translating. So permanently, if you judge people permanently, that kind of means more that you judge them and that judgment sticks. But I think what you meant to say is that you are consistently judging people, like you do it all the time. I think that's more what you meant to say. So I would maybe use the word consistently, because permanently means like I've judged them and now that judgment stays. You could say I'm permanently judging people. You could say that. And then there was another one. Oh, I would call it a face mask because facial mask, the word facial is often associated with like spas, you know, you get a facial mask, but I would call it a face mask. Those are the only two translation things that I noticed. Oh, I thought it was just so funny. So Sylvia and I have also worked together for a while, so I feel comfortable giving her feedback. So if anyone's like, whoa, I thought it was really good, but she's giving her all these things, it's because we've worked together before and we know each other pretty well. I would really commit to the joy of judgment. So when you're talking about, you know, like, oh, I have this new way of judging people, I mean, you're obviously enjoying yourself when you're speaking, but you can go so much further into that, like committing to that joy. Like, this is the newest thing that I have found, and it's amazing, and really, you're kind of selling it almost, you know. So I would commit to the joy of judgment more. Also, that's a fun thing to say: commit to the joy of judgment. And when you have a secret, I don't even remember what that was now. Oh, the conspiracy theory. When you're saying, you know, some people think it's the pharma companies, but I know the truth. Really go into like how deeply can you go into that conspiracy theorist character and enjoy that secret and sharing that secret. You know, people think it's this, but they're wrong. I know the truth. I know that it's the fashion industry. You know, the more you can commit to that, the funnier the joke becomes, because the more we think you're being really serious and, you know, enjoying that secret, the better the punchline falls. Pauses are your friend. Don't be scared to pause, especially for punchlines, because yes, you are a fast talker and fast talking is good. It works with your delivery. Don't change that. Instead, just really allow things to land. So once you've made a joke, if there is something that's funny, really wait before you start the next thing. And I know you were reading, so it's a little bit trickier, but there were a couple of things that I almost didn't have time to laugh because you're already on to the next thing. So really use those pauses, lean into the pauses more. And especially I haven't done anything to piss them off yet. Like really wait for the yet, because it's not funny if it comes straight away, you know? So there's all these and you are pausing in the right places, but make them even longer. Give us time to laugh with you, not at you, with you. And then the other reason why pauses are useful is it allows you to pick the words up off the script. So a couple of ums and ahs were creeping in at the end because you were trying to continue to speak. But especially with stand-up, you don't want to be speaking all the time because we need time to laugh. So finish something, let it go, get into your breath, find the words, and then come back. And you don't need to be kind of churning it out all the time. And that will help with some of the ums and ahs. That was my feedback. I thought it was great. Did you have any questions, Sylvia?
Yes, just one. Was I doing any app speak or not so much or a lot?
Not
like quite.
I don't remember. It wasn't distracting. I don't really remember. I can watch it back, but I didn't notice it. It wasn't noticeable. Let's put it that way. It wasn't noticeable. I mean, every now and again you will go up when you are appropriately. You'll go up because you're in the middle of a sentence and you're about to say something else. But I didn't notice the upspeak that time. It might have been that your content was so engaging that I didn't notice it, but it might have been that you weren't using it. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Cool.
Do you have any other questions?
No, I just want to thank you for letting me speak, even though I came so late. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And it's so funny. Like, it's always after an hour that people start joining. We had Fatima's here as well. So I'm just going to check in. Hi, Fatima. Nice to see you.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. I saw your Facebook Live and I started watching it. Then I realized that you're actually on Zoom, so I just hopped on.
Yes, we are. Did you have any questions or did you want to speak at all?
No, I just kind of tuned in, so I'm not gonna ask for a recap for me because I want to respect everybody's time. But I'm kind of checking out what's happening here.
It's lovely to see you. We were just about to finish, but there will be a replay. And I just want to ask you, just because we haven't seen each other in a while, and I know that Fatima was working on you're working on oh, and I'm going to forget what it was. You had this project going on last time I spoke to you. How's that going?
The Power Forward series?
Yes, how's that going?
Oh, really well. I ended up doing about 9 sessions in 2020. They went really well. What came out of it is I started a mastermind group, which I'm running now, and that's going to be really cool. Next year, I'm going to restart that. So they're basically going to be once a month, topics relating to leadership learning and growth strategies. And we'll talk about improving our leadership skills through those.
So it's webinars, right? Like you're offering monthly webinars?
Yeah. They're more like Zoom calls, kind of like this, so everybody gets to talk.
Nice.
I have considered, I might experiment with a webinar next year, 2021.
Yeah,
I'm talking about next year like it's forever later. 2 months later, 1 month later. Yeah.
I don't know. Webinars, webinars are useful if you have a presentation, obviously, because then you get, the slide share and breakout rooms and that kind of thing. But I really like the calls. There's so much more interaction. It's a lot less lonely as a speaker because webinars, you can't see everybody's faces. Yeah, so let me know how those experiments go. And
I
also,
will.
For all of you, everyone who's on the call and anyone who's on the Facebook group as well, if you have upcoming events, if you have presentations that are coming up or webinar series that is coming up, please feel free in the comments. Let us know what you're doing. If you're running a comedy group, for example, or if you have your educational series, please do put the information about that in the Facebook comments, because obviously the Zoom chat is going to disappear at the end of the call. But put that information in the Facebook comments so that people who've seen this open house can go and support you and enjoy what you're doing if they want to learn more. So so Fatima, please make sure you put the info in.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We are going to wrap up. My back is starting to complain at me. So I just want to ask one question of everybody. We're just going to go around the group and I'm going to ask everybody one thing that they liked from this session. And those of you who are watching on Facebook who aren't on the Zoom call, please type into the comments something that landed for you today, something that you were like, whoa, I hadn't thought of that, or I'm going to use that in my presentation tomorrow, or in my general life communication, because public speaking isn't only about speaking on stage. Public speaking is about any time that you are using your voice to communicate to another member of the public. So even if you're at home, technically you're public speaking. So yeah, are we cool to go around and ask everyone to speak on the video? Does that work? I see Morgan's already put it in the chat. I'll see if I can remember what order people logged on in. Sam, I think you logged on first. Can you tell me what your favorite piece of today's open house was?
I can't quite remember, but I would say whatever you say is a good refreshment of what I used to hear and forgot about.
Just everything you say is wonderful, Danielle. I like that. I'll take that. Thanks so much, Sam. And I think, Morgan, you were next. Do you want to let us know what your favorite part of today was?
One that really sticks to my ribs right now is communication is about exchange. I'll be taking that one to heart.
Yay. I love that. Thanks so much, Morgan. Yak, was there anything that stood out for you? Are you still there?
He wrote me that he went for laundry. I don't know.
Oh, he went for laundry. Okay, well, you're excused, Yak. Sylvia, anything I know you were watching on Facebook though, so.
Yeah.
What stood out for you, Sylvia?
I really liked when you were speaking about like when somebody says an idea and it's overlooked and then somebody else has the same idea and everybody's like, oh yeah. Like why they don't listen to the other person who said it first. And just the idea about the way he said it and the body posture and everything. And I'm speaking, but I don't really kind of want to speak. So that was very interesting for me.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks so much, Sylvia. And Fatima, I know you were watching on Facebook too, so it's not just the last 5 minutes that you're, well, or is it?
Yeah, kinda. I was in and out. I think the highlight for me, I don't think I can substantially say, oh, this was it or this wasn't. I really do need to go back, and I just kind of joined on Facebook. I will say the highlight for me are those peacocks in the back. They're so pretty.
Oh, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we have to just take a moment. We just have to take a moment to appreciate my cushions. My mother made these, and she was going to throw them out. I went over to her apartment, and she was like, yeah, I'm just going to donate them somewhere. And I was like, I want them.
What?
So now I have peacock cushions. And they're beaded and everything. Like, she put the beads on them.
That's amazing. I got an elephant, and he carries Ferrero Rochers for me.
Ooh. Ferrero Rocher elephant. I like that. Awesome. And I also just want to say a huge thank you to Caitlin, our moderator today. Caitlin has been making magic happen behind the scenes since she started working with me a couple of months ago. And I couldn't do this without her. she's setting up all my systems. She's doing all my design for me. She's allowing me to do just what I want to do, which is coach and create content. And it's been amazing. And thanks to Caitlin, we have a really exciting, I almost forgot to talk about, we have amazing, exciting giveaway coming up in December. Starting December 7th, everyone who is on my mailing list gets 12 days of gifts. We're doing a 12 days of Christmas giveaway. We're not doing it on the actual 12 days of Christmas. We're doing it from the 7th of December to the 18th of December. If you're not sure if you're on my mailing list, make sure you are, because it's awesome. And we've just been doing all the design right now. Caitlin, can you put the link to that in the chat?
I certainly can.
Thank you so much. We've been designing it, and I'm going to put the banner on the Facebook page later today. She made this most beautiful Santa Claus illustration from scratch. I'm so happy with it. So I'm giving away 12 gifts over in December, and there's also going to be discounts and stuff, but I didn't want to make it just a sales thing because not everyone necessarily wants to buy from me. I wanted to be generous and I wanted to give. So there are also going to be discounts in addition, but whether or not anyone decides to become a client of mine, whether or not anyone decides to purchase anything, if they are on the mailing list, they will get 12 gifts, and some of them are quite big. And some of them they're kind of like stocking gifts. Some of them are smaller, but some of them are not small at all. So I am very excited about that. And if you want to join my mailing list, do that at the link. We've got lots of exciting stuff coming down the line. So thank you all so much. Caitlin, what was your favorite part about today? Were you paying attention between moderating?
just staring blankly at the wall. No, I loved the impromptu comedy throughout. It was absolutely not what I was expecting, and it was marvelous. We basically started with comedy, we ended with comedy. It was pretty fantastic. Yeah.
Free entertainment. It's edutainment is, I believe, the term. It's got to be entertaining and educational. I don't provide so much of the entertainment, but other people do. I provide the education part. Totally, that was so fun. So thank you all so much for coming. If you have any questions for me at any point, please, you've got my email address, please reach out. You can reach out to Caitlin too if it's anything technical. I offer free vocal needs assessments. We've got the 12 Days of Christmas giveaway coming up. So there's lots to talk about if you want to talk to me. And I will see you soon. Thank you so much. Thank you for making this so fun. And I will see you all very shortly. Bye.
Thank you, Dan.